Alright, what's going on everybody? This is Typhon and welcome to my introduction to Photoshop, and in this video I'm basically just going to be showing you guys the save settings that I use, the preferences that I use, and I'm not going to be going over every single option, every single setting in Photoshop. I'm sure you can find other YouTube videos on YouTube that go through all of that. I'm just going to be going through the most important ones that I feel like you need to know and the ones that I've been using for a long time. So yeah, let's just hop right into it. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when you open Photoshop is you're going to want to go up here to Edit, Preferences, and click General. And this is going to bring up your Preferences window, and all of these settings you might want to take a look at. Just in the Generals tab here, we're just going to take a look at the image interpolation. So if you don't know what this is basically how your Photoshop will render images, and typically I like to keep this on bicubic sharper because I work with higher res images, so bicubic sharper is best for lowering them in size. This nearest neighbor you don't really need unless you're doing pixel art, and bicubic smoother is best for actually enlarging images. But I usually just typically stay on bicubic sharper, so make sure you have this setting selected pretty much all the time. If we move on to interface, you can click your color theme here if you want a black scheme or a gray scheme. I just like the gray scheme, but if you ever wanted to change your color theme, it's right there. Workspace, you don't really need to mess with this too much unless you want to change the way your UI looks. Tooltips, same thing. If you want to show tooltips for when you hover over a tool or an option, they will all be here. Your file handling, you should always save your image previews, and make sure you have this option selected here where it says automatically save recovery information every 5 minutes. That's typically a pretty good time to have your Photoshop save something automatically in case something crashes. If you find that you don't have a lot of memory, then maybe lower it down to 15 or 10, but for me I like to use 5 minutes. As far as performance goes, you're going to want to check this tab if you're having available RAM issues on your Photoshop. You may want to play with this slider. I'm personally not going to touch this because I don't have any memory issues, but if you do have memory issues, then this tab is probably a big reason as to why. If you ever have an error pop-up that says your Photoshop doesn't have enough RAM, it can't open this file, this is going to be one that you're going to want to take a look at. This cursors tab, you can change your cursors. I usually don't mess with this. If you want to change the way your transparency grid looks, it would be over here. You can change it from medium, light, dark. Usually I just keep mine on light because it's default pretty much everywhere. But if you ever wanted to change that, it will be right here. Units and rulers, this is where you would change your measurements if you wanted more control over the size of your document or maybe the size of your rulers. You can change it from inches to picas, which every pica is actually a 1/16 of an inch. So that's very helpful if you ever need to change the size settings for any of your documents. If you ever want to change the way that your guides or your rulers look, you can change the colors over here and the way that they look over here. Usually I don't mess with this. I like to keep mine default, but if you find that you prefer other colors or other appearances, this is where you would change it. Last but not least, 3D. If you are rendering 3D via Photoshop, this is definitely a tab that you would want to use. And make sure that if you are rendering 3D, that you have your Photoshop use 100% of your available VRAM so that it can render as quickly as possible and render in the highest quality as possible. Also, for your shadow quality, you're going to want to probably change this to very high. Unless you don't have a computer that's up to par, you might want to actually lower this. Alright, so now let's hop into Photoshop, but real quickly before we do, if you ever want to clear some memory or some RAM in your Photoshop and you have a bunch of recent files here, all you can do is go to File, Open Recent, and Clear Recent File List, and as you can see, everything in my recents have been cleared, which means that I saved up some memory from my Photoshop. So you can go to File, New, and I'm just going to make a 800 by 800 canvas size, and this size is good for pretty much every profile picture on any social media site. So if you want to do a profile picture on Twitter, this is the size you would use. Same thing for like Facebook and Instagram. Alright, and then I'm gonna get out the logo. There it is. Alright, so you're just gonna drag the logo over to the file. You can do a quick thing where you can go to View, New Guide, and you can type 50% for both of these. And then press Control T. Make sure you have your logo selected. Press Control T, and you can scale it down. So I'm just going to scale it down nicely and have it fit in the center. Something like that, right? And let's just do, let's make the logo blue. So double click on this layer in the open space, click on color overlay, click on the square right here, and just make it blue. Or whatever color you want, you can make it. So then double click on this layer. It's going to most likely be locked. You can click OK. You can do another thing, which is create a new layer, which is right here, and then click on the rectangle tool and just like drag it out, and then you can turn this layer into whatever color you want. Same thing, just double click on the open space, click on color overlay, and then we can make this black. Alright, so real quick, I'm going to show you save settings just so you have them. If you hit Shift, Control, Alt, and S on your keyboard at the exact same time, you can save it. You can save for web. You can also save for web through the File tab up here. And then from here on out, you can render it as a PNG, a JPEG, a GIF, whatever you need it to be. And then make sure, if you are rendering it as PNG, make sure that this is bicubic sharper, and the percent right here is 100. And if you are rendering it as JPEG, make sure this is maximum and the quality is 100. And you can just save it to wherever you want. It's Premio detailing profile picture, and just hit save, and there you go. And so hopefully that kind of gets you through everything. Alright guys, so that was just a quick introduction to Photoshop, save settings that you need, preferences that you need. This video was actually originally meant for a client, and I decided to turn it into my first formal video on YouTube. So I really hope this helped you guys out. If it did, leave a like and leave a comment down below on what you would want to see next. I'm really trying to get back on my YouTube grind and taking this channel to new heights. So if you are here, thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.